working for better race relations in the game have been researching its roots and uncovering a proud but hidden history of black players stretching back to the last century. When we told Newcastle's Shaka Hislop that one of the first ever professionals was black and a goalkeeper, he wanted to find out more.
Good save!
If you asked me if I was the first black goalkeeper to play for Newcastle, I'd have said of course. But it seems like I'd be wrong. Arthur Wharton arrived in the north of England in 1884 when Victoria was on the throne and Newcastle United, as it is today, had never been thought of. He came from the Gold Coast, now Ghana, and was part of a wealthy political family. He planned to study to become a missionary, but he was too good an athlete for that. At the National Championships in London, Arthur became the first man to be officially clocked at 10 seconds for the 100-yard sprint. There aren't too many who could do that in the Premiership, let alone a keeper. He was soon signed up by a succession of football clubs, including Sheffield United, Rotherham, Preston, Stockport, and a Newcastle representative team. He broke down barriers wherever he played. He was always the only black face in the team photo, and he loved the attention. Arthur was no ordinary keeper. He liked to wind people out a bit. Sometimes he'd crouch in the corner of the goal and leap out and make a save at the last minute. He was famous for hanging from the crossbar and catching shots between his legs. Can't see Kenny Dalglish going for that somehow. Not all the papers approved of Arthur's antics.
Is the darkie's pate too thick for it to dawn upon him that between the posts is no place for a skylark? By some, it's called coolness. Bosh!
Arthur's story might have been forgotten if it hadn't been for two people, Ray Jenkins and more recently Phil Vasili, who's writing a book on his life. Would Arthur have suffered any racism at the time?
Arthur did suffer racism. I mean, he was called a nigger on one occasion when he was out of view, and he jumped up and he said to the two athletes that were due to run against him, that had called him a nigger, well, if you don't want to run against me, I'll box you instead. And I think they ran the fastest race of their life away from Arthur.
Well, he was married to my grandmother's sister, so that makes him my great uncle. Well, I saw this letter in our local advertiser, and it was asking for information on this man, Arthur Wharton. And I remembered that he was a relative of mine and that I had some photographs somewhere of him. So I went up into the attic, and there were quite a whole series. When I first found this photograph, I hadn't realised that he was coloured, funnily enough. It never connected with me. And then when I learnt about all his feats, I'm just amazed that he wasn't better known. It makes me feel quite proud. I do boast about it, I must admit.
Arthur drifted out of the game and later contracted cancer, but nothing could stop Arthur running.
Yes, I saw him run down that miners' welfare ground. There were no fat on him, nowhere. He was all muscle. He was like looking at a greyhound. And they always used to say he could catch pigeons. Aye.
Sadly, Arthur never made any real money and ended up working down a coal mine near Doncaster. That would be the equivalent of John Barnes or Ian Wright becoming a dustman. So why is it important for somebody like me to remember the life and career of Arthur Wharton?
Well, it shows that there's been a consistent presence of black players in the British game ever since professional football began.
Arthur's story has a sad ending. Not only has his place in black history and football history been forgotten, but his grave in the Pit Cemetery has no headstone.
Well, it's pretty sad, isn't it, to think that of his achievements he hasn't been remembered. I would like him to be acknowledged. It would be nice to have a memorial of him, to have a gravestone there to say who he was.
Arthur Wharton was a real pioneer and an inspiration to all of us. It would be a shame if he were to be forgotten all over again.
Our thanks to Shaka Hislop. And there are details of the Arthur Wharton Memorial Campaign and the rest of tonight's stories on page 622 of CFAX. That's it for this week.